It's a day post FOMC, and it hasn't been without volatility and events. Quite interesting. Obviously, yesterday we had a pretty rough close. Today we had a pretty strong open, gave back all those losses or recouped all those levels, however you want to say that. And then we gave all the gains of the day back and went to negative territory and closed just a little bit higher, but still well off the pre-Fed, pre-Yellen levels of yesterday. Now, in the morning, I think what propelled the market up was people just said, oh, it was Yellen, not Powell, who sent down the market. And then they just kind of left it at that. I feel like the bulls are doing very little analysis. Their analysis is like one single fact or one single sentence. When you look at what Powell and Yellen said and what Yellen changed in her statement today, it's the same thing. It's deposits are guaranteed. We knew this before. They're not doing any special programs. Yellen talked about yesterday backstopping systemically important banks that have systemic risk. You know, it's all very clear, very simple. And here's the thing. If the market wants to put that risk aside this morning, then yields should go up. But they're not going up. And by yields not going up, we're basically pushing a beach ball further and further underwater. Don't fight the Fed. That's the phrase. The Fed literally has its hands on the levers of interest rates. Literally. And the market can fight them in the short term. We're in a blackout period. The blackout period's ending. We're getting bullard. The most hawkish and the most correct member this entire inflation fight. The doves have not been correct once. Not once. They thought they were correct when they said, oh, peak inflation, they're going to crash the economy. Well, then inflation reaccelerated. So I repeat, not once. Not once. Bullard has been right the whole time. The 2-year is currently below 3.8%. The Fed is expected to get rates above 5% for the majority of this year. So you do the math on that. Above 5% for the majority of this year. We're at 4.75 to 5 right now on the Fed funds rate, which is the low rate that has no duration risk, no opportunity cost risk, none of that. So above 5% most of the year, for a little bit just under 5%. So 5% all this year. Based on what the Fed is saying, for the first half of next year, also above 5%. And maybe if the dovish end of the spectrum ends up coming correct, which is only one more rate hike this year, which is highly debatable if that's possible, and we'll get into that in a second. If the most dovish possible outcome that the Fed is willing to accept, because let's not forget, Powell mic dropped yesterday. He mic dropped saying no rate cuts this year. So the market has to completely price that out. It hasn't priced that out at all. Still pricing a significant amount of rate hikes this year. As I said in the Left Skewed article, biggest divergence between what the market and reality are saying I've ever seen. And that should play out over the next couple weeks. And by the time we get PCE next week, I'm sure it will. So, quite crazy action. Now let's get into the inflation debate, because nobody seems to want to debate inflation. They want to say inflation has peaked. Well, they've been wrong. Okay? And no, you're not going to hear them admit it. You're not going to hear them admit it. You're going to hear lots of people try and put the inflation question to the side. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to address it head on. I don't see disinflation, at least in core and PCE, what the Fed actually cares about. They don't care about CPI. They've said this before. CPI, the biggest contributor to the decline in CPI has been energy prices. We had artificial supply come onto the market for over 6 months in tremendous force that Granholm said today she's going to spend the next couple of years refilling. The Fed doesn't want to rely on energy prices because they know they're volatile. They don't want to rely on food prices because they know they're volatile. So then you look at core PCE, the thing that actually matters and is worthy of discussing, and you look at it after revisions. There is no trend. There is no trend down. It's mid fours to mid fives, up and down, all over the place in that range, not coming down. This is additionally supported, that's with revisions, which have in the recent times been revisions up in the level. That is further supported by month-on-month core PCE reads, which have reaccelerated 3 months in a row to a near inflation battle high, just tied for the second read of the entire inflationary period. Core CPI, which is more similar to core PCE, although not the same, but similar, has reaccelerated 4 months. The discrepancy being we haven't gotten the February core PCE data yet. It's safe to assume, based on that logic, that core PCE will reaccelerate this in February. The data remains to be seen, but that should be the case. If that's the case, it'll be the highest month-on-month read, or tied for the highest month-on-month read, of the entire inflationary battle. How are the doves going to get anything when core PCE is very much in a sideways range, not on a sustainable path to 2%? Put your case in the comments. Happy to debate it live. Happy to engage in this conversation because nobody wants to talk about it at this level. They all just want to say inflation has peaked, inflation has peaked, inflation has peaked, or say something like the Fed should readjust its inflation target. They're not actually talking about the data. When you look at the data, it's very obvious that we're not about to get to 2% in core PCE. As a matter of fact, it's looking more likely like we're going to reaccelerate based on the month-on-month reads. I mean, I'm just going off the facts here. I'm just going off the facts. Yes, I'm interpreting the facts, but we're talking facts on this channel. Nobody else is doing that. Who else is doing that? I don't know. They're literally just saying inflation's peaked. They're not even telling you at what number or anything. We're looking at the data. We're posting the data on Twitter. If you look at the data, it's very clear to see that the Fed's hawkishness is warranted. And maybe they didn't bring it all out with Powell. Maybe this is the most dovish dot plot they possibly could have comfortably put out. They did like the very minimum to move it in the hawkish direction. But it's still relatively dovish compared to where it could be. But make no mistake, in my opinion, this is a way of easing the market because obviously we know about the banking stresses. We know how hard people are coping to say the Fed needs to cut rates, that they're going to be dovish, that they're going to pivot. No, they're not. Powell mic dropped. They're lining up Bullard to follow him up. Get ready. If you are not ready, you're in for a reality check. And if it doesn't happen this week, let's see how core PCE data looks next week. The Fed is data dependent. We've talked about the data on this channel. We're not just saying it's peaked. The headline CPI numbers against tougher bases are coming down. None of that crap, okay? We're going to what actually matters, core PCE. And when you look at what actually matters, it's very clear that inflation is not coming down towards 2% in a rapid fashion that warrants rate cuts by the end of this year. And that's why Powell mic dropped. So that's today's video. And until next time, peace out.